guys, welcome to Your Earthy Black Girl. This is your host Sanaa, also known as Your Earthy Black Girl, and today we are going to be talking about attachment styles. Okay, so the reason that we're going to be talking about attachment styles is because I brought it up in past videos, and I know I've always said I was gonna make a video on it, but I never got around to doing it. So now I'm actually doing it this time. And also, if you're wondering where my glasses went, I have them in contact, so that's why I don't have any glasses on. But attachment styles. So I'm going to give you guys a definition. If I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking at my iPad for the definition. So attachment styles are the ways in which individuals tend to behave and interact with others, especially in close relationships based on their early experiences with caregivers. So to basically analyze that, attachment styles are basically how attached or unattached you are to another partner in a relationship, and apparently it's based on how your parents or caregivers or guardians were when you were a baby. So there are 4 attachment styles. There's secure, anxious, avoidant, and then fearful avoidant, which is a mix of anxious and avoidant. And I'm going to go through each of the 4 and kind of explain, because I feel like a lot of times the reason that people's relationships are failing or they're just not compatible with a specific person is because of their attachment styles, and your attachment styles are clashing. And I won't say that when you find out your attachment style that you are stuck with that attachment style, but it's kind of something that you can't just say, I want to be this today, so that's what I'm going to be. And the second you get into a relationship, how you act most naturally, you know, they say the 3-month rule, it's 3 months until you act your normal self. So how you act your normal self, whether you kind of draw away or you want to pull closer in, or if you're secure and you're like, I'm kind of content with either one, or like I'm somewhere in the middle, then that's how you're going to behave based on your attachment style. But you can do things and be intentional every single day to move towards a secure attachment style. But like I said in past videos, you can't really go from one bad attachment style to the secure attachment style by not being in a relationship, because there's nothing challenging you or making you feel as though you need to push yourself towards secure. And I talked about that in a previous video. But yeah, so if you want to know what your attachment style is, I'll leave the link to the quiz. It's like a 24 question quiz. It's kind of long, but it's very comprehensive, and I'll link that in the description box below. And also I will tell you guys beforehand, because it's not like a secret, but my attachment style personally is an anxious attachment style. So I'll explain all the 4 attachment styles and what that all means in this video. Okay, so first we're going to start with the one that everyone wants to be at. So that is the secure attachment style. So a secure attachment style is categorized by individuals that feel comfortable with intimacy and independence, trusting their partners and themselves. So you're not going to be stressed about what your partner is doing, and you're going to trust them, but you're also not going to withdraw and be like, you know what, since I can't trust them and I can't trust anybody, I'm just going to be to myself. You're not going to do either of those things. You want a relationship, so you go out and get a relationship, and then you're happy and healthy in that relationship. You're not picking arguments. You're not, ghosting them. You're not doing any of those things. You're just, think of what a normal, healthy relationship is. That's what a secure attachment style is going to be. The next one I will say is an anxious attachment style. This is the one that I have personally. So an anxious attachment style means someone who craves closeness and intimacy but worries about abandonment, often seeking reassurance and validation from their partners. So I really just exposed myself now, like how I am in relationships, but that's basically what that is. And if you guys have ever related, then you might be an anxious attachment style. But it's basically someone who, they're like the would you love me if I was a worm of a relationship. Like, they're going to always ask you for reassurance because they're scared that you're going to leave them, and that they have a fear of abandonment. So they always assume that whoever they're with doesn't like them, doesn't love them, is going to leave them, is cheating on them, something like that, to where they're going to constantly ask for you to confirm that that's what's going to happen, or they're going to ask for you to confirm that that's not going to happen. Because if you confirm, yeah, I am going to leave, yeah, I am cheating on you, or whatever, that's just going to confirm their idea, and they're going to be like, okay, well, I was right anyway. It always happens to me. But if you confirm otherwise, then they're going to be soothed for the minute, and then they're going to be right on the BS the next day. And I may or may not be speaking from personal experience, but we're going to go to the next attachment style. So the next attachment style is the avoidant attachment style, and this is categorized as someone who is uncomfortable with intimacy and prioritizes independence, often pushing away or avoiding close relationships. So basically, this is the anxious worst nightmare. So if you're avoidant, do not ever, and I mean ever, unless you guys are getting married and you have a relationship counselor on the way, do not ever get with someone who's an anxious attachment style. And if you're an anxious attachment style, do not ever get with someone who's an avoidant attachment style, because an avoidant attachment style, they're going to pull away. They're not going to be as communicative. They also kind of have a fear of abandonment. So instead of the way that the anxious attachment style does it, where they're like, I want to get closer to you because I'm so scared you're going to leave me, they're like, I'm so scared you're going to leave me, I'm going to push you away so that I can have the control and that I can have the power instead. The anxious attachment style puts it in the other person's hand, and the avoidant keeps the power in their hand so that they don't get hurt. So you guys can see why that relationship wouldn't work, because as the anxious wants to be closer, the avoidant is going to keep pulling away. So that's what the avoidant is and why they should not get with an anxious attachment style. Then the last one is kind of a combination of both. It's called fearful avoidant, and it means that you have a fear of intimacy and a fear of rejection, often avoiding relationships or becoming overly dependent on partners. And the way I would kind of simplify that to describe it is, you want a relationship, but when you're actually in that situation, you pull away because you're scared. You have the mindset of an avoidant attachment style, but you crave the relationships and intimacy of an anxious attachment style. And I know that kind of goes against what the definition said, but in my experience on the website and like just in like everyday life, I've seen that like a fearful avoidant, they're like the worst of both worlds, basically, where they're anxious and avoidant kind of like mixed together. Now, I will say that I've obviously not perfected this. I'm only 17, so I can't give like too much love advice and advice on relationships and perfecting your attachment styles. But I know that the first step to moving away from fearful, avoidant, and anxious is always going to be with starting with the quiz. Like again, I said, I'm going to put it in the description so that you guys can identify what your attachment style is to begin with and know like where you're starting at. Because if you're starting at secure, then that's great. That doesn't mean that you can't grow into a worse attachment style though, because it takes some consistency and consistently trying and choosing better options every single day. And also, I think that it very much depends on who your partner is, because if you have an avoidant attachment style and you're secure, I mean, at a certain point, you might turn into an anxious attachment style because you're so used to that push and pull. But most times that won't happen, because a secure attachment style, they know exactly what they deserve in a relationship and they're not going to put up with anything other than that, if that makes sense. But for the other three attachment styles, like you and me, if you want to move towards a secure attachment style, options are, you know, like therapy. But if you don't have that like access to therapy, or you just don't want to go that route, obviously this is kind of like a self-help, self-heal channel in general. So you can start with shadow work. There's a billion shadow work prompts, journaling, just thinking about your past relationship experiences and, you know, where you went wrong, where that person went wrong, and what happened when you chose that person. And if you've never been in a relationship, then it's kind of hard to know how you would act in these relationships, but you can still think of like your family, friends, and how you view abandonment with them and how you would act on abandonment if you're going to pull closer or if you're going to draw away. And so think of some everyday tangible actions that you can take in a relationship or out of a relationship, just to know that you are safe, that you're in that relationship, that you are safe, and that there's nothing to worry about. And if there is, then you shouldn't be in that relationship. Like, for example, if I am in a relationship, for me personally, I will never, ever, the second someone says I'm avoidant, I'm nonchalant, I'm out. And that may be very avoidant of me, but for me personally, I would rather kind of throw the potential of that relationship away, because I know that yes, you can be intentional and you can be like, no, I'm going to work on myself, you're going to work on yourself while we're in a relationship so that we can make our attachment styles work. But for me, I'd rather not do that, and I'd rather save myself with the stress. So if someone like, I'm looking out for those key words, because I feel like that's another thing that will help you in healing your attachment style, is looking out for key words when you're in relationships. You don't want to be with someone who's going to be very clingy if you're an avoidant. You don't want to be with someone who's going to be very distant and nonchalant if you're an anxious attachment style. And if you're a fearful avoidant, you really don't want to be with someone who's either of those things. So you really want to make sure that you're looking out for those words, and if you see them, don't think that you can fix them. Don't think that you can just make it work with the power of love, because be that as it may, that may be true, but it's not your responsibility, nor is it your job to kind of fix that relationship when God already has someone that's a perfect match for you without you having to do all that extraness and it's like trying to force two puzzle pieces that don't fit together. Sure, you can cut it around, hurt yourself in the process, but it's not going to be as seamless as putting two puzzle pieces together that are meant to naturally go together. I hope that made sense. So listening out for those keywords: shadow work, journaling, therapy, all ways that you can go from your not really the best attachment style to a secure attachment style, because that's where everyone wants to be. But I will say the best thing that you can do is put yourself back in the field. I know it's gonna hurt, it's gonna be painful, but personally I think love is always worth heartbreak. And also, you're really never going to challenge yourself while you're single, because I can do shadow work prompts all day, but if I'm not actually being tested in that relationship, then it's not going to be for any reason. It's not gonna make a difference. Like right now, I'm chilling. I have nothing to be anxious about. I have no one to be clingy to. The second I get in a relationship, that might change. So being in a relationship ultimately is always going to be my number one advice. Obviously, don't go running out and searching for one. Like, let it come to you, let it naturally find you, and then when you're in that relationship, make conscious efforts to be better. But yeah, well, that's all I have for you today, guys. Make sure you choose love, spread love, and be love, and I will see you guys next week. Bye bye.